frankincense, one of the gifts given by the three wise men to the newborn Christ. As rare and as precious as gold, its smoke was thought to have divine powers that directly connected man to his God. From its source in Oman, an epic trade route was forged across Arabia to the Holy Lands, where it was shipped throughout the ancient world. And along the way, entire civilizations emerged from the desert and prospered. Now, 5,000 years after the frankincense trade began, I'm following in the footsteps of one of the great epic trade routes of ancient times. My 2,000-mile journey started in Oman with the Al-Mari tribe, the descendants of the original frankincense traders.
Goodness knows what's going to happen!
The ancient trail led me to Yemen, one of the most dangerous countries in the world and a stronghold of Al-Qaeda.
People keep telling you, there is a risk, there is a risk.
From remote desert villages, I journeyed to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia's glittering modern capital, where I got a glimpse into the lives of the super rich.
I feel like I'm in a Bond film.
With my life in the hands of Saudi's first astronaut, I followed the frankincense path from above.
Ah! You're mad!
Safely back on the ground, the trail took me through the Muslim world's most sacred territory to the gateway of Mecca.
Just magical!
700 miles north, I explored the spectacular ruins of a city built entirely on the profits of frankincense. And then I was shown new evidence of the ancient route in the Red Sea, an untouched wreck of a ship. From the coast of Saudi Arabia, I've crossed the Red Sea to reach Aswan in Egypt, to join an even more ancient trade route that followed the River Nile. I'm near Egypt's southern border. This is where the frankincense trail of the pharaohs begins, as does my journey to follow it. Incense was one of the most important commodities in ancient Egypt because the pharaohs used its smoke to communicate with their gods, and that made it as essential to life back then as water from the Nile. Vast quantities of frankincense were shipped from the south along the Nile by one people, the Nubians. Their civilization predated the pharaohs, and throughout most of their history, they controlled trade along the river. Today, they still carry profitable cargo, crowds of tourists. Although they no longer deliver frankincense, it still plays an important part in their lives. I've been invited to a Nubian village to see for myself. I'm going to a wedding. I can hear the party before I get there, and I can't wait. Nubians, I'm told, really know how to celebrate a wedding. I'm meeting the father of the bride with my wedding present, some of the frankincense I bought in Oman. Nubian tradition uses incense smoke to consecrate a marriage.
Okay, so Mohammed, this is my present for your daughter. It's good? It's good for the bride? Yes. She will be pleased?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, fantastic.
Nubian weddings have been known to last for anything up to 40 days. Luckily for the groom, Mohammed, his wedding is a relatively short, low-key affair. This is the third and final day. In the time-honoured way, he has had to pay for everything, including transport, accommodation and food for all 200 guests. To be able to foot the bill, he's been saving for 7 years. This is the bride's home, but she stays out of sight until the big moment. Just outside her room, her aunties are preparing for the final wedding ceremony. Using an ancient family recipe, they're creating a special blend of perfumed smoke.
this is a whole kind of precursor before the bride arrives. So the women are getting the frankincense, some of my frankincense, and then some sort of aromatic herbs and bits of bark and things. They're getting all those ready, and I think there's going to be some sort of blessing between the bride and the groom. There seems to be a tremendous amount of ritual here, and although I had a kind of, I suppose, a very traditional English wedding in a church, it kind of pales into insignificance compared to this, which is like a tremendous sort of theatrical performance.
Outside, the family wedding party is joined by the entire village. The main street is blocked off and the dancing begins in earnest. This is when the beautiful bride, 26-year-old Azar, appears. Her arrival is heralded by dancing, singing, and something totally unexpected. Not the heady perfume of frankincense smoke, but the synthetic fragrance of toilet freshener.
I can't believe that I dragged 40 kilos of frankincense here, only to be upstaged by an aerosol.
Finally, the mothers of the bride and groom step forward to give their children away. Like the exchanging of rings, their blessing with incense smoke confirms their bond as man and wife. Tomorrow, I'm returning to the trade route that made the ancestors of my fellow wedding guests very wealthy indeed. After travelling 1,000 miles from the south with their cargoes stacked high, the Nubian traders would have arrived at this remarkable site. This was the gateway to pharaonic Egypt, Philae Temple.
I can't get off here. Can someone help me? Ugh. Shukran. Thank you.
The original temple was built to worship the most important god of the afterlife, Osiris. It was Osiris who decided the passage of the dead into paradise and who also brought life to the world. But this temple didn't just serve a religious purpose.
Because of its geographical location right at the southern point of ancient Egypt's territory and of course right on the river, this temple probably doubled as some kind of trading post. Everything that the pharaohs imported from the lands to the south of here would have travelled along this stretch of the Nile, from elephants to pygmies to wood for construction and of course huge quantities of incense.
These inscriptions describe how important frankincense was to the rituals of the pharaohs. They believed its smoke allowed them to assume the power of the gods so they could rule over all of Egypt. And it was burnt in every temple, every day.
This temple may be a remarkable example of ancient architecture and human endeavour, but probably the most extraordinary thing about it is that it wasn't actually built here at all. See that little green lump out in the water there? Well, that's the original Philae Island. That's where this temple stood. But when the Egyptians built the high dam, the entire area flooded, and this temple was submerged almost right to the top. So basically, the Italians got together with UNESCO, got a bit of cash and said, we'll move it to dry land. And what they had to do, you can see the posts sort of sticking out there. That was a mini dam that they built so that they could drain the water away from the temple, literally cut out block by block, bring it back here like a giant jigsaw and reconstruct it. Now, the more lucid among you may be thinking, why didn't they do that before they flooded it? I don't know either.
From Philae, I'm following the frankincense route that continued north along the Nile, supplying the hundreds of temples along its length.
Thank you. Ooh, how chivalrous you are.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's
No
slippery.
free. No free.
It's fine. Hello, my name is Kate. Hi, Kamal. Nice to meet you. Gosh, what a beautiful boat.
I'm sailing on board a felucca, the type of traditional boat that transported frankincense along the river. Made from the trunks of palm trees, feluccas are designed to skim across the Nile's fast-flowing current.
To north. Oh, we've done it! Hooray! Gosh, I can't believe how high it is. It's so beautiful.
For something like 6,000 years, the Nile has been Egypt's highway, carrying its goods and carrying its people. But it's not just a river, it's the nation's lifeblood. Because this country sees less than an inch of rain each year, Egyptians rely on the Nile for their fresh water. And amazingly, 95% of the population live within a mile of its banks.
Cruise boat coming. And this is way for the cruise boat.
There are a lot of them, aren't there? Many cruise boats.
A lot of cruise boat here, more than 375 maybe.
What do you think of them?
Not good for the river.
Why?
Because a lot of oil,
Yeah.
a lot of smoking for the machine.
How old were you when you first were in charge of a boat like this?
I came a small boy about 6 years.
6.
Years.
And was it your father's boat?
It was my father. Yeah. My father teach me everything.
Well, I have to say, at this time of day, I can't think of anywhere more beautiful to be than here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
At dusk, we make camp and boil some of the Nile's water for tea, just as I imagine the frankincense traders would have done. Tomorrow, I'm going to the temple of a pharaoh whose demand for frankincense surpassed any of her predecessors. Less than a mile from the riverbank, built into the mountains that enclose the famous Valley of the Kings, is the temple of Queen Hatshepsut. She ruled Egypt nearly 1,500 years before her more famous successor, Cleopatra, and her consumption of frankincense was legendary. The world's leading expert on Hatshepsut, Dr. Shafransky, shows me one of the very few surviving images of her. Although her face has been vandalized, the unusual position of her hands shows her making a ritual offering of frankincense.
So she would have had oil on. She's got a hand like that with oil on this finger.
Yeah, these 2 fingers. Yeah.
And then like that.
And then put on the statue.
All the way up the statue.
Yes.
And that oil would have been fragranced with frankincense, with these imported perfumes that she loves so much.
They're the most important, the best in the world.
It seems quite an awkward way to do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
All the pharaohs used frankincense to commune with the gods, but Queen Hatshepsut was the first to burn vast quantities on a huge public scale. And this was designed to prove her divine power to her people.
She created a new feast, the so-called beautiful feast of Amun. A lot of incense was required, and it was a very important element of this feast. And she wanted to bring the best in the world, the best incense in the world.
During the week-long feast, a gigantic pyre of frankincense burned day and night, its cloud of smoke visible from miles away.
And presumably, all these clouds of incense smoke that people were seeing from the Nile meant that she had to make an awful lot of journeys to get that incense from the south.
Yes. We know that she brought heaps of incense.
These 3,500-year-old frescoes are the earliest records in the world of frankincense being transported.
Then we have seen of loading of incense tree. In a basket.
So she actually came up with the idea, rather than of just getting the harvested sap of taking the whole tree back.
Very wise idea.
Very clever.
Although this temple was Queen Hatshepsut's tomb, her body was never found here. But a recent discovery could have solved the mystery. When I get to Cairo, I'm going to see for myself. Now, it's believed that less than 1% of ancient Egypt has been excavated so far, but you can't just turn up and dig. Dr. Shafransky is taking me to meet the man in charge of all archaeological activity in this whole area.
He's on the phone.
He's one of the most powerful archaeologists in Egypt, and he has a fearsome reputation.
So we go in?
Yes, we go in.
Mansour Barek's job is to protect the wonders of ancient Egypt from tourists, TV crews, and especially archaeologists. His rules are strict and his motto simple: break them and you're out.
I'll tell you a story, you know. One member from a mission began to interfere in the work, not in her work. What we did, we let him return back to her home directly in 24 hours.
Really?
Because she began to interfere in something not her business, you know.
And what did you do? Did you just go to her and say, pack your bags?
I called the head of the mission. I told him, please, this should leave now the country because she began to write something which is not her business.
Warning heeded, Mansour agrees to meet me later at one of ancient Egypt's greatest treasures, which just happens to be round the corner from his office.
This is one of the most astonishing things about Egypt. You walk round a corner and there's yet another walloping great temple.
This is Karnak, the largest religious site anywhere in the world. It's a collection of different temples that represent the combined legacy of nearly every pharaoh who reigned over ancient Egypt.
Pharaohs always wanted to outdo the previous pharaoh. So someone would build a temple, die. Next pharaoh would come along and go, ha, I can do better than that. And would build one even bigger. And so the result is 2 kilometres square of just kind of, well, Egyptians showing off, really.
The first temple was built here nearly 4,000 years ago. From then onwards, Karnak was under constant construction until the birth of Christ.
The scale of this place, of all this ancient Egyptian architecture, just takes your breath away.
The ancient Egyptians believed Karnak to be the god's home on earth. To show respect to those gods, frankincense would have been burnt here day and night. Mansour has arranged to meet me at Honso Temple, a place where frankincense was prepared by high priests. In this vast maze, I don't have a clue where it is, but he should be easy to find. He's brought 100 school children with him.
It can't be that hard to find 100 school children, surely. Excuse me, Khonso Temple.
Khensu.
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 Okay, Khensu. Is it through that way?
One of the many guardians of the site, Abdul, shows me the way.
Can you just go a little bit more slowly? Abdul?
Temple Khonso and the portal, let's go here. Land. Stop, stop. Yes.
Is that an earthquake?
Yeah.
Earthquake.
Yeah.
Most of the buildings in this corner of Karnak have been destroyed by earthquakes, but Honso Temple remains.
Aha. I think these are the children I'm looking for.
That's cool.
They're here to learn the rituals of their ancestors in a place known by the high priests as the Holy of the Holies. And just as he promised me, Mansour is here to meet me.
I have to say I am so envious of these children because what a place to learn history. I mean, it's just all around
just to show them, you know, in a simple way.
And he's burning
you can
incense
see the
as well.
burning dances.
Yeah.
High priests used burning frankincense to lead Karnak's most important annual procession, which started in this very temple. In ancient times, the entire city would have followed the priests to where the pharaoh made his dramatic public offering to the gods.
the processions is so important.
Right.
The king came to the temple. The high priest carrying the flame in front of the king with the incense until they reached the statue or the bark of the god. Then he handed it to the king. And the king began to do his rituals in front of the park or the statue or even the shape, the relief which shows the god.
Okay.
This is something so important in the rituals during the festivals of the ancient Egyptians inside the temples.
And when they were worshipping their gods, I mean, this sounds like an obvious question, but what was it that the pharaohs wanted from their gods? What were they asking for with all this frankincense?
Yeah. Especially, he asked the god to give him the power.
The pharaohs believed this power could give them control over the earth. If they performed the rituals well, it would mean prosperity. If they didn't, their people starved.
Frankincense was key to that religion.
Of course, you can see the scene. You can see the king.
He's
carrying the flame and he's burning the incense in front of the shape of the god.
For over 4,000 years, frankincense was used in religious ceremonies throughout ancient Egypt, but its religious significance didn't end with the pharaohs. From Karnak, I'm heading 100 miles north to join a modern-day religious ceremony where frankincense is still being used. I'm sharing a bus with some Christian pilgrims who belong to the Coptic Church, one of the oldest branches of Christianity. Surprisingly, in a country I think of as almost exclusively Muslim, Coptic Christians make up around 10% of the population.
This bus is taking me to Durunka, one of the holiest sites in Egypt, if you happen to be a Coptic Christian. They believe that this is where Mary, Joseph and Jesus fled to escape the persecution of Herod. And every year up to 50,000 Coptics will make a pilgrimage here to take part in one of the biggest events of the Coptic year.
The monastery of the Holy Virgin here at Durunka is big, about the size of a small town, but every bit of it is crammed with people here to take part in the procession.
Great plan to meet somebody very tall. You know the man, he's very tall. The holy man. Which way?
To help me find my way, I've arranged to meet one of the monks. He hasn't left the monastery for 10 years. He wanted to take himself away from the world. But the irony is today, the world has come to him.
Deacon Basil!
Yes, it's me.
I didn't think I was ever going to find you.
Yeah.
So, you are going to lead me in this madness.
Yeah, it's such a blessing.
Okay, I follow you. You go, and I'm.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Your willing disciple, I think. You came here for a solitary life?
Yeah.
Deacon Basil, you came to the wrong place.
No, this is the right place, but this is the wrong time.
The wrong time. So why does everybody come here at this time of year?
To celebrate the annual fasting named after Virgin Mary.
Okay, but why do it at this time of year when it's so hot and everyone seems to be almost on the brink of madness?
Because it happened that this is according to the Coptic calendar.
Yeah.
We celebrate the fasting of Virgin Mary from 7th to 22nd of August.
Okay.
As part of the celebrations, monks have been praying and burning frankincense in this chapel since dawn. Just like the pharaohs, they believe the holy smoke delivers their prayers to their god. But unlike the pharaohs, they don't have their own reliable supply.
Typically, this should be frankincense, but not usually we manage to find frankincense. So any kind of incense works.
You know what I have?
Oh, don't say it's frankincense. It is. That's great.
The monks sing in a language once used by the ancient Egyptians. This is the final prayer before the procession begins outside. But there's another thing Deacon Basil wants me to see. It's a great honour for Coptic families to have their babies baptised here, and the priest will perform about 5,000 baptisms over the next few days.
Are there a lot of Coptics practicing in Egypt now? Because Egypt's predominantly a Muslim country, isn't it?
Yes, it is currently, but Copts are always there.
It's quite rigorous. In Britain, when a child is baptised, they just use a bit of water and they make the sign of the cross on the forehead. The child has to swim.
Yes. We are a biblical church, and that's how Jesus Christ himself got baptized.
Okay.
By being immersed 3 times.
Deacon Basil leads me to the cave Copts believe was once a refuge for the Holy Family. It's one of their most sacred sites, and it's full of volunteers making last-minute preparations for the procession. These men in white robes are amongst the most devoted, and today they're going to be put to the test. Their job is to protect the monastery's bishop as he leads the procession through the crowd outside. Many have been waiting here for 2 days to claim their position. But others haven't gone to the same trouble. Wealthy families have purpose-built viewing rooms that are only used to watch the procession for this one day each year. Then the bishop arrives. 87 years old, he's too frail to walk and will complete the procession in a golf buggy. The crowd believe that a blessing from the bishop will bring good luck to them and their family for the year ahead. The closer they get, the better they think their chance is of this coming true. This procession has been attracting ever bigger crowds over the past decade, with attendance figures almost doubling year after year. Stories of the blessed finding sudden fortune have been a motivation, but it's also been suggested that rising Islamic fundamentalism across Egypt has sparked a new wave of Christian fervour.
We seem to be descending into complete chaos. They're trying to control the crowd with a barrier here, but it looks like fighting's breaking out.
The bishop remains calm as chaos descends all around him. After just 20 minutes, the procession comes to an end as the bishop returns to his solitary life inside the private rooms of the monastery.
The procession is officially over, and now it's just processing to get out of town. That was quite possibly the most insane experience I think I've ever had, but despite it being at times actually quite frightening, the number of people and the crush and this kind of fervour. Everyone has been incredibly friendly, and what really comes out is this pride in the Coptic faith. People coming up to me and just saying, look at all these Coptics together, look at them all, there's thousands and thousands of people here and they're all celebrating and they're really proud of that fact. And this sort of thing has been happening all the time, just these little spontaneous outbursts in the crowd. I think the party might go on a lot longer than I can handle.
This has been a crazy day, both exhilarating and frightening. And in that heat and the crush of the crowd, it was also completely draining. I've reached that point where all I want to do is stop, cool down, and go to bed. But this is Egypt, and it feels as if this country never sleeps. The nighttime, apparently, is the time to travel. So I'm catching the 1 a.m. train, and the plan is that I wake up refreshed and ready to go in Egypt's capital city, Cairo, first thing in the morning. That is, if I can ever get in my cabin. Like almost everything in this country, the train line sticks close to the Nile on my 300-mile journey to Cairo. After 5 very short hours and not much sleep at all, I arrive with the morning papers in the middle of the city. Home to 18 million people, its population is growing faster than almost any other place on Earth. And already at 6 a.m, the streets are buzzing. My first stop is the spice market, where frankincense has been traded since Cairo was first built.
So is Cairo a good city to live in?
A good city.
Today the traffic is not so bad?
Today holiday. Cairo we take Friday holiday. Tomorrow very bad traffic.
Very bad.
Cairo wasn't founded by the pharaohs, it was constructed instead by Muslim conquerors from Tunisia just over 1,000 years ago. That's why the heart of it is known as Islamic Cairo. Its maze of alleyways twists around hundreds of medieval mosques and forts.
Thank you. Can I swap an apricot for some frankincense? Perfect. Okay, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
The air is filled with the smells of 100 different spices and aromatics. It's a nose-tickling experience. Used for medicines, for ingredients, for talismans, seeds and starfish, oils and incense are still in demand all over Egypt today.
Excuse me. Do you want me to help? We're going through.
The old city's alleyways lead me to Cairo's famous Museum of Egyptian Antiquities. This is where the pharaoh's priceless artifacts are kept on display. It's also where the mummy, which might be that of Hatshepsut, the frankincense queen, is on show. Before I find her, first I have to make my way through crowds of tourists and 120,000 ancient Egyptian relics. So many that not all of them have been catalogued, but some are famous the world over.
Tutankhamun, the pop star pharaoh. It's staggering, isn't it? Thousands of years after a man's death, people are flocking to see what he was buried with.
Tutankhamun is the best known of all the pharaohs because his tomb, full of kingly treasures which included frankincense, was found intact. When modern-day archaeologists found Queen Hatshepsut's tomb, the treasures and her mummy had gone.
Well, if the details of Hatshepsut's life weren't sketchy enough, her death had also caused Egyptologists to argue and wrangle for years and years. Basically, no one could find a mummy that was definitely Hatshepsut.
But the discovery of the mummified remains of one of her household staff provided a clue.
This is the wet nurse of Hatshepsut. She was called In. She must have been a very beautiful woman. Quite striking with all that red hair.
Another mummy was found alongside her, the remains of an unidentified woman, but much less well preserved.
This was the mummy of a very obese, disease-ridden woman, but recent thinking believes that the face I'm looking at now is the face of Hatshepsut. How she got there, why she ended up in that state, nobody really knows, and the evidence that this is Hatshepsut is based on one tooth missing, another tooth found in another coffin that was apparently Hatshepsut's. So it is all still a bit of a mystery.
The ancient Egyptians believed they had to be mummified so they could be resurrected and live eternally in the afterlife. But mummification was only one part of the process they had to undertake to reach the world of the gods. On the edge of Cairo are the most famous monuments in Egypt, built on the orders of pharaohs to help them travel from this life to the next. It was here frankincense was used in some of history's most elaborate death rituals. The tallest of the Great Pyramids of Giza is 450 feet high. For 4,500 years, until the construction of the Eiffel Tower, it remained the tallest structure on Earth. Janice Cameron is one of the world's leading experts on the pyramids.
I remember the first time I saw the Mona Lisa for real, and it was like seeing a celebrity, you know, it was something, I've seen this all my life, and this is the same. It's just, you can't quite believe that this is it, that this is actually real.
It is so big.
It's so big.
It's so big. I remember the first time I came here driving up and it just got bigger the closer you got. It's just enormous.
Can you, what went through the guy's mind? Who thought of this? I mean,
well, you got to get to the sky.
Madness, isn't it?
Get as close as you can.
That was it, was it?
Well,
trying to get to the sky.
That's part of it, sure.
Absolutely, it's astonishing.
Although it took 100,000 people 20 years to build, it's the tomb of only one man, the pharaoh Khufu.
Why did Khufu build it?
Well, after his death, he became a god, and this was his resurrection machine. That's the Egyptological buzzword.
What do you mean? So the idea was that he would put himself in this to be resurrected and, what, shot out of the top suddenly as a god, or?
One thing that's interesting about ancient Egyptian religion is that this pyramid, this huge mountain of stone, represents kind of a stairway to the sky.
And this is about as big a stairway as anyone could imagine. The ancient Egyptians believed that they entered the afterlife through a specific part of the sky above. But Khufu's journey started deep inside the heart of the pyramid in his burial chamber.
Lead on.
The burial chamber is situated close to the center of the pyramid, 250 feet below its apex.
Which I think what I hadn't appreciated, I might seem really stupid now, but I thought the pyramid was a sort of a pyramid-shaped shell, and it would be completely hollow inside, but it's solid rock all the way through.
It is. I mean, the bottom part is actually bedrock. They left a big chunk of bedrock sticking up from the plateau, and then they built quarried stone around it.
Okay.
This tunnel leading up to the burial chamber is only 4 foot high and originally was blocked by 3 7-ton granite slabs to stop intruders.
That whole thing about women gently glowing, it's not true, is it?
No.
I'm not going to look very ladylike, I know, when I get up here. Oh my goodness. It's completely unexpected.
It's called the Grand Gallery, and it's a remarkable feat of engineering. It's unique. The technique is called corbelling. See how the stones overlap and overlap until the top? And then straight up that way is the burial chamber.
That's where we're going?
Yeah. Okay. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Pick a
side.
back.
Which way do we go up?
We can go up this way.
For anyone taking part in Khufu's funeral, this journey must have been awe-inspiring and terrifying in equal measure. the tunnels would only have been dimly lit by torches and probably full of incense smoke. It must have felt like a procession into another world. Finally, a much smaller tunnel that leads to the pharaoh's resting place.
You can't do this elegantly, can you? You could be in the most modern building in the world.
Once this room was stacked full of treasures that the pharaoh believed he'd need in the afterlife. But they've long since been stolen.
And this?
This is the king's sarcophagus. This is where the coffins and the royal mummy would have been put.
And would frankincense have played a part, or incense would have played a part? Because obviously that played a huge part later on, but is that something that would have been key at this stage as well?
Incense was part of the offering ritual from the earliest periods of Egyptian history. It's listed as part of your main offering, and was definitely used as part of the funerary ritual and part of the daily cult ritual. Nice echo, huh? So the first time I ever came here, my friend Stacy and I had the place to ourselves for some reason.
Yeah.
And we sang a rousing rendition of Amazing Grace, which the acoustics were wonderful. It's like singing in the shower times 10.
Yeah. Should we do one? I don't know the words.
I don't think I remember.
No, come on, you must remember one line. Go on, how does it start? Go on.
Amazing grace.
After the claustrophobia of the pyramid, I've come to Cairo's only green public space, Al Azhar Park, to say goodbye to the city. Families come here for fresh air and for the magnificent sunsets. Tomorrow, I'm leaving the metropolis, leaving behind the Nile River and the mighty trade route of the pharaohs. Now I'm turning east towards the frankincense trail of Arabia. From the Sinai Desert, I'll travel on foot to the Red Sea coast. A local Bedouin known as Farag the Fox has agreed to be my guide across the desert sands to the sea.
That's the frankincense again.
It's a 30-mile journey that takes around 2 days. And of course, we're going to travel by camel.
So the head right down.
Yes. The Bedouin can't live without camel. He's his life, you know.
So even though you have the 4x4 now, the camel can't be beaten?
No, but we use the camel, of course. 4x4 can go some places, but the camel can go anywhere.
I'm getting rather used to this now. Riding a camel is sort of like riding a bike. You never forget. But I'll need to look after mine. Camels today are regarded as luxury items. They can cost up to £1,000 each, so they're a big investment, especially in a region with little paid work.
There are still then Bedouin living in the Sinai in the old way?
Yeah, not all of them.
But some?
Some of them live in old way. For the old way, more easy life. Not like the life in the village. Now, if you live in the town, you need to pay money for everything. To spend in 1 day, and dessert you can spend in 20 days. Yeah, no market is very easy, you know.
I think maybe there will be a lot of people who would like to live the Bedouin life, would like to get back to that simple life.
Farag has brought me to meet a traditional Bedouin healer who's famous across all of Egypt. He's famous because he cures people who are ill using only herbs that he collects from the desert.
Dr. Ahmed, salam alaikum. I'm sorry, you are with a patient. Shall I go?
أهلا وسهلا. ده مريض يعني كان عيان شوية هو تعبان شوية.
It's okay.
أوكي تفضل.
سلام عليكم.
أهلا وسهلا.
Nice to meet you. Please carry on.
أيوة بعدين اللي حصل إيه؟
A self-proclaimed doctor, he has no formal medical qualifications. Instead, Dr. Ahmed uses the knowledge of generations of healers before him to diagnose and treat everything from cataracts to broken bones. This patient has been suffering from severe stomach pain. Dr. Ahmed begins by listening to his blood flow.
Dr. Ahmed, can you tell me what's wrong with the patient?
بالعربي دي قرحة التهابات في ألم التهابات في البطن.
I join Dr. Ahmed as he goes to collect the patient's medicine. The desert that surrounds his clinic is his pharmacy. There are 527 varieties of herbs that grow here, and he knows the healing properties of all of them. This is the plant he needs to cure his patient, a type of desert rosemary.
Oh, yeah. Can I or will I? Oh, it tastes completely different from it smells. Tastes of woody. It's quite nice. Yeah.
Pharmaceutical companies have used herbs from the Sinai as the basis for commercial drugs since the 1950s. Dr. Ahmed treats all his patients directly from the source.
Wow, what a smell. Look at all this stuff. All these are different herbs for different treatment?
Yeah. After Dr. Ahmed has crushed the plant's leaves, he mixes them with other herbs. With a final 21st century touch, his patient receives his 100% natural medicine.
How quickly will he get better?
Good.
He'll be good?
Yeah. Good. Yes.
We need you in England.
Inshallah.
I rejoin Farag and we continue our journey east. Just a few miles from the coast, Farag decides to stop for the night. And of course, there's a tent to be put up. Not just any tent, but the traditional home of the Bedouin. Spun from goat hair, it's a design that's been perfected over thousands of years.
Any minute now, someone's going to ask for the instruction book.
Yeah, here, this one. Here. Come to here, to this one.
To this line here?
No, yeah, to this line, yeah.
Yeah.
No, come back more behind.
Back
more. More. All right, yes.
That way?
That way,
like that?
Yeah, up. يلا واحد. أيوة.
Well, that's taken roughly 45 minutes. And I have to say, I don't like our chances of staying dry if it did rain suddenly. There's an awful lot of gaps under here. Maybe that's Bedouin air conditioning.
The layout of a Bedouin camp follows strict rules and procedures, and even the camels have to know their place.
The camel in the front of the tent, but if you have a donkey going behind the tent.
Why?
This is what?
It's just the system.
No, the system of the Bedouin, but have also something going. The camel usually, if you see anybody come from anywhere, from the far, he start moved.
It's like a guide, a guard dog.
Exactly.
Ah.
But the donkey, if you see anybody, he doesn't matter.
Doesn't do anything.
You just make your hand like this. We put him in the bag, you know. This is the Bedouin bread, and this is fish and potatoes and tomatoes all together here.
Oh my word, that looks amazing.
Yeah.
It smells fantastic.
Everything we cook it in the fire.
Perfect. So, do you eat just with the bread?
Yeah, like I teach you how.
Okay,
you
go on
take
then,
piece
show
of
me.
the bread, and first start take like this with my hand.
Yeah.
And then we start eating.
Oh, this bread is hot and so fresh.
Yeah.
I'm going to try a bit of this.
Yeah.
Oh, good, man. When it's silent like that, you know everyone is really enjoying their food.
Dinner's over by 8 o'clock and I'm ready for bed.
Would it be okay if I slept outside? Because the stars are so beautiful, and in England it's always raining and you never get a chance to sleep outside.
That's okay, no problem.
Yeah? Where would be a good place to go?
Come to show you the place.
Okay.
Usually we look about the wind.
The wind?
Yeah.
Okay.
You put your head to the direction of the wind.
There is no wind, Farag.
Yeah.
It's completely still.
Yeah, but will be in the night come the wind again. Here just.
Here?
You can let your carpet here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not quite in the tent, but just outside it.
Yeah, of course, outside, no, of course.
So I'm just at the edge of the tent, and it is quite bumpy. But frankly, I'm so exhausted. I think I will just sleep incredibly well. Although him talking about breezes, I don't know where that's coming from, because it's absolutely still, and it must still be about 35 degrees. And my view of the stars is interrupted. Call the manager, I'm going to complain.
At dawn, the tent we took so long to erect is taken down again.
I think I can officially say that I'm not tough enough to be a Bedouin. Everyone went to sleep, and I lay down on the bit of carpet that Farag gave me. I was looking at the stars and just thinking, I'm never, ever going to sleep. So, and I just felt so guilty about kind of failing. So I crept out with my torch. I crept out and was sort of scanning around, and I saw a sleeping bag. Yes! So I kind of snuck it back in and unrolled it. So I had about that thick mattress, put a carpet over the top so no one would know, and then finally kind of passed out for about, I don't know, an hour. But it was so hot, so just the temperature never went down at all. And so although it's a very, very beautiful place to sleep, it wasn't the most restful night.
After the Bedouin breakfast of tea and tobacco, we head to the Red Sea. Farag has been measuring our journey according to the time he takes to smoke cigarettes. He's nearly through a whole pack.
How many cigarettes to the village?
Half cigarettes.
Half a cigarette. Okay,
Yeah,
so we're quite close.
Meaning half an hour.
Half an hour.
This tough landscape has made the Bedouin who they are. Every tree and rock has a meaning or a purpose and is inhabited by spirits. There are good and bad spirits. The bad spirits are known as jinn. Someone who is particularly unlucky or suffers from inexplicable ill health is believed to be possessed by jinns. This region is home to a man who has inherited the power to exorcise evil spirits.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sheikh Fauda is able to detect whether someone has been possessed by jinns, and as soon as we're introduced, I begin to feel a little anxious.
When the Sheikh meets someone like me for the first time, does he sort of try and assess, look at me and think, oh, she has a bad spirit, or...?
Yeah, from the eyes of the person, from the face also.
I'm quite nervous now.
The Bedouin of the Sinai believe that possession by jinns is a frightening reality. Just last month, the Sheikh exorcised a man who had inexplicably murdered his family. The evil spirits only become visible in specially prepared smoke. He wants to find out if it's possible that a jinn might have possessed me while I slept.
When you sleep in the night, do you cover your face?
No.
Or you leave it out?
Out.
بتخليه عليها.
You know, when you're a kid, your mum says never accept sweets from a strange man. She never told me what to do in this situation.
You do what you do.
Yeah.
The sheikh adds frankincense to the burning embers to thicken the smoke. I'm both sceptical and a little afraid.
You stand up and put the blanket up to your background.
Like a cloak or on my head?
Yeah. No, the head.
On my head. Sit down?
Yeah.
The sheikh looks for signs of the spirits in the smoke of the burning frankincense. This is my moment of truth. After what seems an eternity, he hands me an ember of the burnt frankincense.
You didn't have anything.
I have no gins.
Everything okay.
Thank you.
The colour is pure and pale, a sign I'm free from evil spirits.
Is there anything that the sheikh can do to give me good luck for the rest of our journey?
The last of the frankincense embers are added to water to make a blessing.
Put it on my face?
Yeah.
After this, is no jinn come to you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I will be safe tonight
Yes.
and for the rest of my journey.
This is exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
Shukran.
From Sheikh Fuda's cave, it's only a 2-hour walk to the Red Sea coast.
Wow. The end of Egypt.
Yeah.
All right, just calm down.
And to the sea. Oh.
This is now the 4th nation that I've crossed on my remarkable frankincense trail. Just across the water is the Kingdom of Jordan, where I'll begin the final stage of my journey. In the next programme, I leave camel trains behind and hitch a ride on the longest freight train in Arabia.
There's something quite exciting about going on a train that doesn't take passengers and kind of taking off into the desert.
I meet a daredevil pilot.
You are a girl who knows how to make an entrance.
And we trace the ancient route through one of the most spectacular deserts in the world to a hidden city built by frankincense traders. Then I cross no man's land into Israel to a different way of life and a different world.
What I can do is I can call a rabbi over and explain it to you exactly.
The ancient trade route leads me to the most contested religious territory on the planet, the city of Jerusalem.
People have given up their lives for it.
And then I make my final border crossing to the last stop on my frankincense trail, the village of Bethlehem. And I arrive on the one day of the year when it's the centre of the world's attention, Christmas Eve.
The patriarch is coming, and so is every security man in Palestine.
And Kate Humble continues her journey here tomorrow. Tonight, saving the giant panda, the most ambitious conservation project ever mounted. That's next on BBC HD in a Natural World special.